27. That's the last verse of the chapter. Again, the storyline is Kardama with benedictions and blessings from Lord Kapila Dev. He's gone back to the forest, continuing what he was doing before. And it's describing the symptoms of his samadhi. We find discussion about samadhi and its symptoms in Bhagavad Gita, and here it is, chapter 24 of Canto 3. Atmanam sarvabhuteshu indicates, this is the first line, the sarvabhuteshu, the soul of all living entities. That's not us, that's Paramatma. Bhagavantam avastatam. He saw that this personality of Godhead was situated everywhere within every living entity. He saw this. Not only understood it notionally, but he saw it. Apashat, he saw. Sarva Bhutani Bhagavati Apichatmani. Translation. He began to see that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is seated in everyone's heart, and that everyone is existing on him, because he is the super soul of everyone. And Srila Prabhupada's purport, that everyone is existing on the Supreme Personality of Godhead does not mean that everyone is also Godhead. This is also explained in Bhagavad Gita, everything is resting on him, the Supreme Lord, but that does not mean that the Supreme Lord is also everywhere. This mysterious position has to be understood by highly advanced devotees. There are three kinds of devotees: neophyte, intermediate, and advanced. The neophyte devotee does not understand the techniques of devotional service, but simply offers devotional service to the deity in the temple. Semicolon. The intermediate devotee understands who God is, who is a devotee, who is a non-devotee, and who is innocent, and he deals with such persons differently. But a person who sees that the Supreme Lord is sitting as Paramatma in everyone's heart, and that everything is depending or existing on the transcendental energy of the Supreme Lord, is in the highest devotional position. So this differentiation is in many places throughout Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita, Kanishta, Madhyama, Uttama, and there are gradations of those also. In the Gaudiya Math, they have this language: Kanishta, Kanishta, Madhyama, Kanishta, Uttama, Kanishta. Kanishta, Madhyama, 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 Uttama, Madhyama, and so forth. So Kardama is on the topmost position, the Uttama, Uttama. There are several mysteries. One is Prabhupada is pointing to in the purport, referring to the Yogam Aishvaryam, the opulence, mystic opulence, mysterious mystic opulence of Supersoul, or the personality of Godhead. Everything is resting on him, and yet he has his separate existence, not resting on me or in me. He has his own, so that there's Paramatma feature and Bhagavan feature, and the Bhagavan feature is in Goloka. And the Bhagavan feature of Goloka is not directly overseeing, the overseer, the Upadrashta feature of the Supreme Lord, that's Vishnu. And Krishna does not get so involved, does not get involved in that way, as overseeing. And even Vishnu, he oversees and he doesn't get directly involved. Rather, he does through his potencies, whatever he does. Maya Dyakshena. Dyaksha is similar to Upadrashta. He oversees Maya. Anyway, there's a mystery of how the Supreme Lord functions. I forget which is which, but there was a period of time in European history where there was a differentiation between theology and deism, or something like that. One is where God is directly involved in the ongoing minutiae of oversight of the material energy, or God isn't. He just creates, lets it fly, and that's it. And there's some group of people that were scholars, religious scholars, that influenced by the times, as scholars influence times and times influence scholars. It works both ways. During a period of time that in Europe there was a fascination with making clocks, and so God was compared to the clockmaker or the watchmaker, and he just makes the clocks. And once they're out of his watchmaker and clockmaker shop, that's it. He is not further involved. That's God's function. Therefore, it was to relieve God of the responsibility of abuses in the creation. That's the living entities that make the abuses in creation. But God made a perfect watch. He didn't make mistakes. People misused the machine, and they made mistakes, but he's not responsible for their mistakes. And that was the intention behind that picture of God's position. And others, no, he's directly involved. How can you have the machine? This is Prabhupada's argument. How can you have the machine without the operator of the machine? Even if he turns the button off and on, you have to have a machine operator. You don't have machines without a machine operator. Anyway, and then the intelligence that governs the machine, that in a factory or artificial intelligence, robots, and anyway, the intelligence that's programmed into that thing came from a person who turns the button on after he... Our picture is, we can say both because there's the Paramatma feature and there's the Bhagavan feature. A nice example Prabhupada would sometimes give. An industrialist, he owns many factories, and nothing happens in the factory without the sanction of the owner of the factory. But he's off on the golf course, putting around, hitting a little golf ball. But it's on the strength of his energy that everything is happening or doesn't happen. So it's remote control, not direct involvement. Similar as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita about the system of Chatur Varnamaya Shrishtam. He says he creates a system, then he says, but I'm the non-doer. I create, but I don't create. He does through his potencies, but he's not directly involved in the same way that we're directly involved. There's a mystery that cannot be understood except as being indicated in the purport by a highly qualified Vaishnava. To understand Krishna at all, bhakti is necessary, and an elevated Vaishnava is necessary to understand these more profound mysteries. And there's lots of them. We touched on one of them yesterday. Why did KardamaMuni go to the forest to meditate on Lord Vishnu in the form of his son, when his form of his son was right there in his ashram? It's mystery. He was doing for a purpose, to show by example. And that was the process for the age was meditation, so he did it. He showed by example. He didn't have to. Mysteries are abundant in the relationship of God with all things. So there's the tattva, the sambandha tattva, about the relationship between God and all emanation from Him. There's this nice description where Bhaktivinoda Thakur was teaching Lord Chaitanya's teachings to village people in Bengal through his Namahata program, which now we call Bhakti Vriksha, but the model is the Namahata program. And he did so in the form of where there were villages. Generally speaking, there's somebody that's literate and like a village elder, so he would, where he found such persons that were literate and village elder persons, he instructed them to help the people that were of the village and not so literate to understand, and he did so through the medium of questions and answers. Standard format for any kind of teaching, standard format of the Puranas, certainly Bhagavatam, question answer, but all the Puranas, same format. So he used that format as he did with Jaiva Dharma. It's a question answer format. In the question answer format, he taught nectar of instruction, nectar of devotion, and a whole bunch of other core Vaishnava teachings, just in that format. The student and the teacher. Student asking questions. So to teach Lord Chaitanya's teachings about specifically the inconceivable potencies of the personality of Godhead, he, by question-answer method, described it all. And one of the questions was, that's very easy to understand. Why is this called inconceivable? Achintya Bheda Abheda Tattva. Why Achintya? And the answer given, Bhaktivinoda's brilliant answer was, when the energies start to move, then you can't see these distinctions. The tattva becomes lost, apparently, in the course of activity. The principles don't disappear, but one's ability to discern the principles becomes blurred. But at least we can understand the principle is there. There's a relationship between all things and their source of emanation, and those things move according to the indication of the Supreme Lord, who has them move according to the guna and karma of the living entity, and he reciprocates with them. Just as we heard in yesterday's verse, he's omniscient, and the deserve, the karma of living entities come, even they may not know. They may forget the good and the bad in the mix. Super Soul knows and supplies good, bad, and mix. So that's a mystery. Achintya Beda Bed Tattva. Then another mystery, or seemingly another mystery, is seeing Krishna or hearing Krishna. Now, seeing Krishna or hearing Krishna, it's pretty easy to say, well, it's not like our normal seeing and hearing, because our eyes are material and ears are material, so how can we see or hear Krishna with material eyes and material ears? That's easy. But then what does seeing Krishna mean? Or hearing Krishna mean? Just like the other day, someone, have you seen Krishna? It's easy to say, of course, or it's easy to say no. But where their question is arising from is a presumption of what seeing Krishna means, or not seeing Krishna means. Like the last purport of Canto 1, Chapter 3, Prabhupada writes about seeing Krishna in every page. Seeing Krishna in every page. Does that mean you don't see the page, you just see Krishna's form? The page blurs, and you only see Krishna's form. That's a specific kind of seeing. Or there's seeing of the deity. But when we see the deity, do we see wood or stone, or do we see Krishna? It depends. But we can see Krishna even if we are thinking wood and stone, because he's merciful. He makes his presence visible for our eyes in that form, but he's still Krishna. Just like Krishna, when he appeared in the prison house of Kamsa, and etc., etc., devotees and demons alike, Putana, first demon, she saw Krishna. But she didn't see Krishna, but she saw Krishna. So it's a mystery. And hearing Krishna. Hearing Krishna might be thought to mean like Arjuna. He heard Krishna. And many times I heard in recorded lectures Prabhupada say, some people say, oh, I'll never be fortunate enough like Arjuna to hear Krishna. Woe is me. Boo-hoo. And Prabhupada would say, no. That when Krishna says, surrender unto me, and the representative of Krishna or Guru says, surrender unto Krishna, that's Krishna speaking. You can hear Krishna that way. Or another example of hearing Krishna is worshipping his deity form. If you worship Krishna's deity form with devotion, Prabhupada said more than one occasion, Krishna, before seeing Krishna, you will hear Krishna, and Krishna will say, I am like this. Now what does that mean? You're going to hear you're looking at the deity and there's a voice coming from somewhere, you don't know exactly where, and the voice says, I am like this. We can presume that hearing or seeing is like our hearing and seeing. But on the other hand, we know it's not seeing or hearing like we're seeing or hearing, because those are material instruments. So how do you see or hear? What does it mean? And take that same, it's seeing Krishna everywhere. Or like Prabhupada's statement, a topmost devotee, they don't just see a tree, they see Krishna there. So like all trees disappear and it's just Krishna, 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 Krishna. Like Lord Brahma, when he saw the mystic display that Krishna showed, he saw the cowherd boys and calves but he also saw forms of Narayan. And the personified Vedas and all the demigods and all the great rishis, and for every one of the forms of the calves and every one of the forms of the cowherd boys. So is that what it means? Topmost devotee has this circuit overload experience of seeing what Brahma saw. What does it mean? It's a mystery. I remember one time somebody was asking that question, Swami, have you seen Krishna? And Prabhupada, I see Krishna everywhere. And then the man was puzzled. Excuse me, I'm seeing him all the time. And then the man was puzzled. Do you mean like when you're sitting here right now, you're seeing Krishna? And Prabhupada said yes, and using his worldly intelligence, I won't say the name of the devotee, said, what he means is that by use of the intelligence, he's able to understand Krishna is present, and that way he's seeing Krishna through the eyes of knowledge. Prabhupada said, no. Seeing Krishna. The devotee was quiet, and the person asking the question was quiet. It's a mystery how a person on this Uttama platform sees Krishna within all living entities. Something similar to that picture of Pandita Samadarshana. The other verse? Vidya Vinaya Sampane Brahmani Gavi Hastini Shuni Chaiva Swapakesha Pandita. The other verse? Samadarshana? No? Samadarshana. You know the meaning? Sama? Darshan. Darshan means?
Darshan means
to see.
Yeah.
To see. And sama means equal. Seeing equally. Sama darshana. So a learned Pandit sees equally. And the painting shows he sees a super soul and he sees the individual soul within the cow, the elephant, the dog eater, the brahmana. So the bodies are different, obviously, but within is the soul and the super soul. And that way sees equally. So does he see the spark of soul and the more effulgent super soul? Is that what he sees? Or what does it mean? Does he see through knowledge, or what was his experience? It's a mystery. Again, same point. It's different than our seeing. That's what it isn't. Now, what is it? Well, if you want to know, you have to become an Uttama Bhakta. He sees Krishna everywhere, in the form of super soul. And Premanjana Charita Bhakti Vilochanena Santaksa Daiva Hridayeshu Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundara. Pure devotee sees Shama Sundara, not just Paramatma. Shama Sundara, two-armed form of Krishna playing upon his flute with a dark complexion. Shama Sundara, Achintya Guna Swarupam. Achintya Guna Swarupam, whose form is with inconceivable qualities. Through some bhakti is the medium, then Krishna can show himself. There's no limit to what Krishna can do. And the limit is from our side, how much devotion do we have for the Supreme. So it's a relationship of reciprocation. Kardama has gone to the forest to perform the form of Satya Yuga perfection, although he was already there. And the verse is saying, he began to see that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is seated in everyone's heart, and that everyone is existing on him, because he is the supersoul of everyone. And last but not least, the very first point that Prabhupada makes, again, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine. This doesn't mean that you become supersoul. There are persons who practice the process of meditation upon supersoul with the intent of identifying themselves with supersoul. Kind of silly. Supersoul doesn't become supersoul. That's quite silly. And the perceiver of supersoul, then you become supersoul? Another silliness. But there are persons, that's their program. So Prabhupada doesn't mess around. Just seeing supersoul doesn't mean that you are supersoul. That's impersonalism. The previous purport, he's achyuta. He cannot fall. And living entities are fallible. And so there's distinction. The fallible and the infallible, the maintainer, the maintained, the perfectly conscious and the imperfectly conscious. And the perfection of our consciousness is to be conscious of the perfect. Krishna consciousness. Our tininess is maintained, and the Supreme's position is maintained, and we become conscious of our position as servant of the supremely conscious being. So he's a bhakta. He's a meditator. It's Satya-yuga, but he's a pure bhakta, para-bhakti, as we heard yesterday. He simply wants to serve, and that's a way that he's serving the Supreme Lord, showing by example perfection in Satya-yuga. Okay, any discussion? There's a group that liked lots of discussion, so I left time. Yes?
Maharaj, regarding the Uttamadhikari subject, is it possible for an Uttamadhikari to preach, or does
Of course.
he?
Well, was Prabhupada an Uttamadhikari? Was Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur an Uttamadhikari? Did they preach?
Yeah. I was also reading in Prabhupada's purports where Prabhupada mentioned that the Uttamadhikari comes down to the level of a Madhyamadhikari, and he discriminates between good and bad.
Well, that's the behavior, but his consciousness doesn't come down.
So physically, he just...
No, not physically. Externally, he comes to the Madhyama position, because that's what Madhyamas do. And Uttamas characteristically don't do. But one may descend, and he did. Bhaktisiddhanta did. It's not just physical. It's an external code of conduct. He behaved as a Madhyama.
So even though externally their behavior was that, like a Madhyama, their consciousness was still seeing Krishna in everybody.
Of course. Yes. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Seeing Krishna, it seems that what prevents from seeing Krishna in spite of so many opportunities available is the lack of recognition of the fact that I do not want to see Krishna. Or the reason why I'm here is because of the desire to enjoy independent of Krishna.
Yes.
And when the effort is made to go closer to Krishna, there are so many impressions, and there are so many other desires of wanting to enjoy the result of bhakti, or which prevent seeing Krishna or going closer to Krishna.
That's correct.
So
what to do? Cheto darpanamarjanam. That's what to do. with faith in the bhakti process, take up the matter of cleansing. We're not stuck. Anything else? Yes?
My ignorant question again, Maharaj.
An ignorant question.
Yes. So, I'm not able to phrase it properly. Like, when Uttamadhikaris and then like Krishna and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Like in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, like he can, in his story, in his story that even like he can change the hearts of a beast, like a tiger, and like when he walks in the forest, like all the monkeys and all those things got transformed and they can able to feel the ecstasy. And in Krishna's story, I know it's a Leela when Putana comes in and she has a desire to, kill Krishna. And the transformation, I understand that's a Leela in Krishna's story, and in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's story, it's like all the beasts are getting transformed. This transformation, what is a prerequisite for this transformation? Like, I'm just trying to see myself like, okay, what is that blocking this transformation? Is it part of like, is it like if I'm not changing, like even like a Putana that like still I have this negative attitude, or why like even in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that like when a beast gets transformed by looking at the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is the beast is better than thing. Like, did I phrase? I don't know. I phrased the question properly.
It was a pretty colorful question. I think I have the idea of what you're asking. A phrase was, what's the prerequisite? Well, causeless mercy can be bestowed upon anyone without prerequisite. And that's what happened when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went through the Jharkhand forest. He bestowed causeless mercy. There's no prerequisite. And then in other cases, some persons in the human form, you gave the example of Putana, and there's others, who stubborn obstinacy, they were holding on to something else. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or Krishna may not interfere with the free will choices of living entities, particularly in the human form of life, they're stubbornly obstinate. So what's the prerequisite, your question?
Yeah, how to overcome that?
Well, how to overcome that? There's many ways or examples of how to overcome that, but it's somehow being an object of mercy of great souls. And that's how transformation takes place. How it's possible to take place. And then there's, what does association with great souls mean? Who's a great soul, and how does one associate with great souls? So that's another topic, but just the principle is through association of great souls. They're the transforming agent. They take the position of assisting Krishna to turn somebody's no into a yes. Because if they say no, Krishna's not going to interfere. Sadhu Sangha. Read chapter 20, next chapter of this canto. That's the message of that, the primary message of that chapter. Okay? Yeah.
Maharaj, in last night's class, you were talking about the cause of an action, about that question. We're saying that we need to play our part. Right? And also to understand our part, we understand what our part is from understanding the scriptures.
Yes.
So my question is, Maharaj, like, I mean, I don't understand the scriptures properly, and I really don't understand what my part is. What should I do? How do I play my part?
Keep asking the question and reading the scriptures and associating with sadhus. And you'll get something of an answer that will need refinement. And bhakti is an ongoing process of refining both clarity of what your part is, using that language, and how well are you aligned to what your part is. Ongoing series of refinements. How's that? You wanted to know what to do. That's keep asking the question with faith, following the process, starting with, hearing and chanting. Recognizing whatever it is that I understand is defective, limited, just because my filters are up and I can't get the full picture. But I have to operate from where I am, so that's what you do. Don't be stuck or stubborn or any of those other foolishness positions, proud. Just humble and continue to try to understand. And then when you understand, to the degree that you can understand, you apply. You watch with faith, you watch what's happening, and you may have to adjust. You may have to adjust drastically. That's okay. Keep striving to understand. One who strives by right means is guaranteed of success. That's what you do. Yes?
I was thinking this. You're talking about seeing everyone equally, like how Krishna sees everyone, Uttamadhikari sees everyone equally. So, in my service, where people who are very enthusiastic, then we extend,
Natural.
Involving, yeah, it's natural.
Natural.
But there is some devotees who think that I'm not so good, so that's why I'm not getting that kind of a mercy. So maybe the purity is not there within me. That's the reason. Devotees think like that. But how is that? I can serve them better way, that so that their enthusiasm also can be. Keep up.
Are you limited or unlimited?
I'm limited.
Are you sure? Okay. So within your limited capacity, recognizing, person B that you described, you extend. You extend a gesture that person B understands. Oh. Some personal care is being extended. And, so because you're limited, you can't do more than what a limited entity can do. And you have to be guided by the intelligence that Super Soul provides of how to best use your time and energy in your limited capacities. But you show some gesture. And continue to show some gesture, not a one-time, let's see what they do. But you continue, to your capacity. genuinely, not, in a calculating way. Just genuinely, because it's the right thing to do. They're Krishna's part and parcel. And they're feeling the way that you described they're feeling, and they need to be encouraged, and so that I'll just, to your limited capacity. And don't lament that your capacity is limited, because you're just reality. Your capacity is limited. That's what you do. And when that interaction is there, let be present. Not, something on a little scoreboard for yourself, but be present with care and concern to your capacity. Pray when doing so, or somewhere in there. Super soul, you're in the heart of this soul, this living entity, and they're feeling this way. You're in their heart, please be merciful. You leave the result up to Krishna. And Krishna is not going to interfere with their free will, but Krishna will do what Krishna does, whatever he wants to do. And that's the reality that we have to work with. If you want your limited capacity to increase, one of the most important ways for that to happen is careful sadhana. As one becomes more clean and pure and internally of heart, then more of Krishna's mercy can flow through that's such an instrument. It's easy to get lost in what's out there and lose track of what's in here. What you may be able to be effective in Krishna's service depends on what's in here. Not how much time you invest in what you say and do over there. It makes sense. This is play our part message, but the major part of playing our part is to become pure, so we can be a fit instrument in Krishna's hand. Still acknowledging our limitedness. We're done? Anything else? Yes, Mahamantra?
No, this is from last night's class.
Last night.
So, understanding Vishnu Tattva, the difference between expansions and all, from a point of living entities view, there is no difference, because any of them are equal for uplifting and giving purification to the living entity.
I'm not sure I agree with what you just said, but keep going.
Is it correct understanding?
Just take, for example, names of the Supreme Lord. There's primary names and there's secondary names. And they're in one sense are equal, in another sense they're not. Okay, does that answer your question? Shankidari.
In the neophyte stage, seeing Krishna at the Uttamadhikari level is too far off.
Yes, too far.
So, to practice seeing interest of Guru and Krishna is also, is it a stepping stone?
Sure. And deity worship. And very carefully, with rapt attention, reading, hearing the You don't have to be an Uttama Adhikari to strive and cultivate that from our present position. We can do both. And yes, and call upon mercy of Guru and Vaishnavas and our great Acharyas. That's a Gaudiya principle. To strengthen our bhakti and increase our capacity to know, see and understand Krishna. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.